Hello guys, today I'm gonna be reading chapter 1 of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The Power of Thought. The man who thought his way into partnership with Thomas A. Edison. Truly, thought are things and powerful things that when mixed with purpose, persistent, burning desire for the translation into riches or other material object. Aaron C. Baines discovered how true it is that men really do think and grow rich. His discovery did not come about at one sitting. It came little by little, beginning with burning desire to become a business associate of the great Thomas Edison. One of the chief characteristics of Baines' desire was that it was definite. He wanted to work with Edison, not for him. Observe carefully the description of how he went about translating his desire into reality, and how you will have a better understanding of the three principles which led to riches. When this desire or impulse of thought first flashed into his mind, he was in a position to act up upon it. Two difficulties stood in his way. He did not know Mr. Edison, and he did not have enough money to pay his rail fare to Orange, New Jersey. These difficulties were sufficient to have discouraged a majority of people from making any attempt to carry out the desire. But his was not ordinary desire, was so definite to find a way to carry out his desire that he finally decided to travel by blind baggage rather than be defeated. To the uninitiated, this means that he went to East Orange on a freight train. He presented himself at Mr. Edison's laboratory and announced he had come to go into business with the inventor. In speaking of the first meeting between them years later, Mr. Edison said, "He stood there before me looking like an ordinary." Edison said, "He stood there before me looking like an ordinary tramp, but there was something in the expression of his face which conveyed the impression that he was determined to get what he had come after. I had learned from years of experience with men that when a man really desires things so deeply that he is willing to take his entire future on a single turn of the wheel in order to get it, he is sure to win. I gave him the opportunity he asked for because I saw he had made up his mind to stand by until he succeeded. Subsequent events provided that no mistake was made." Just what young Baines said to Mr. Edison on that occasion was far less important than what he thought. Edison himself said so. It could not have been young man's appearance that got him his start in Edison's office, for that was definitely against him. It was what he thought that counted. If the significance of this statement could be conveyed to every person who reads it, there will be no need for the remainder of this book. Baines did not get his partnership with Edison on the first interview. He did get a chance to work to work in the Edison office at every nominal wage, doing work that was unimportant to the Edison, but most important to Baines, it gave him an opportunity to display his merchandise where his intended partner could see. Months went by. Apparently nothing happened to bring the coveted goal, with Baines had set up his mind as his definite major purpose. But something important was happening in Baines' mind. He was constantly intensifying his desire to become the business associate of Edison. Psychologists have correctly said, when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts its presence or appearance. Baines was ready for business association with Edison. Moreover, he was determined to remain ready until he got that which he was asking or seeking. He did not say to himself, well, what's the use? I guess I'll change my mind and try for a salesman job. But he did say, I came here to go into business with Edison and I'll accomplish this at the end. If it takes the remainder of my life, he meant it. What a different story people would have to tell if only they would adopt a definite purpose and stand by the purpose until it had time to become all-consuming obsession. Maybe young Baines did not know it at that time, but his bulldog determination, his persistence with a single desire was destined to mow down all opposition and bring him the opportunity he was seeking. When the opportunity came, it appeared in a different form and from a different direction. That Baines Okay. When the opportunity came, it appeared in a different form and from a different direction that Baines had expected. That is one of the tricks of opportunity. He had a sly habit of slipping in by the back door, and often comes disguised in a form of misfortune or temporary defeat. Perhaps this is why so many fail to recognize opportunity. Mr. Edison had just perfected a new office device known at that time as the Edison dictating machine, later called the Ediphone. His salesmen were not enthusiastic over the machine. They did not believe it could be sold without great effort. Baines saw his opportunity. It had crawled in quietly, hidden in a queer-looking machine that interested no one but Baines and the inventor. Baines knew he could sell the Edison dictating machine. He suggested this to Edison and promptly got his chance. He did sell the machine. In fact, he sold it so successfully that Edison gave him a contract to distribute and market it all over the nation. Out of that, business association grew the slogan made by Edison and installed by Baines. This business alliance made by Baines rich in money, but they accomplished something definitely greater. He proved that one really think and grow rich. How much actual cash that original desire of Baines was worth to him, I have no way of knowing. Perhaps it brought him $2 or $3 million. Whatever the amount, it became insignificant when compared with the greater asset he acquired. The definite knowledge that any intangible impulse of thought can be transmuted into physical counterpart by application of known principles. Baines literally thought himself into a partnership with the great Edison. He thought himself into a fortune. He had nothing to start with except the capacity to know what he wanted and determination to stand by the desire until he realized it. He had no money to begin with. He had but little education. He had no influence. But he did have initiative, faith, and will to win. With these intangible forces, he made him number of one man with the greatest inventor who ever lived. Now, let us look at different situations and study a human who had plenty of tangible evidence of riches. but lost it because he stopped 3 feet short of the goal he was seeking. 3 feet from the goal. 3 feet from the goal. One of the most common causes of failure is the habit of quitting. When one is overtaken by temporal defeat, every person is guilty of this mistake at one time or another. Dave, who later became one of the most successful insurance salesmen in the country, tells the story of his uncle who was caught by a gold fever in gold rush days and went west to dig and grow rich. He never heard the saying that more gold has been mined from the brains of the man than has even been taken from earth. He stuck a claim and went to work with pick and shovel. The going was hard, but his lust for gold was definite. After weeks of labor, he was rewarded by discovery of shifting ore. He needed machinery to bring the ore to the surface quietly, and he discovered up the mine, retraced his footsteps to his home in Williamsburg, Maryland, and told his relatives and few neighbors of the strike. They got together money for the needed machinery and had it shipped. The uncle and Dave went back to work the mine. The first car of ore was mined and shipped to a smelter. The returns were proof that he had one of the richest mines in Colorado, and few more cars of that ore would clear the debts. Then will come the big killing and profits. Down went the drills. Up went the hope of Debbie and Uncle. Then something happened. The vein of gold ore disappeared. They had come to an end of a rainbow, and the part of gold was no longer there. They drilled on desperately, trying to pick up the vein again, all to avail. Finally, they decided to quit. They sold the machinery to a young man for a few $100 and took the train back home. Wow. Some young men are dumb, but not this one. He called in a mining engineer to look at the mine and to do a little calculation. The engineer advised that the project had failed because the owners were not familiar with the fault lines. His calculations showed that the vein would find just 3 feet from where Debbie had stopped drilling. That is exactly where it was found. The young man took millions of dollars in ore from the mine because he knew enough to seek expert counsel before giving up. Most of the people which went into the machinery was procured through the efforts of Debbie, who was then a very young man. The money came from his relatives and neighbors because of their faith in him. He paid back every dollar of it through his years in doing so. Long afterwards, Mr. Dave recouped his loss many times over when he made the discovery that desire can be transmuted into gold. The discovery come after he went into business of selling life insurance, remembering that he lost a huge fortune because he stopped 3 feet from gold. Dave profited by the experience in his chosen work. His simple method was to say to himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no. When I asked him to buy insurance, he owes his stickability to the lesson he learned from his qualitability in the gold mining business. Before success comes to most people, they are sure to meet with much temporary defeat and perhaps some failure. When faced with defeat, the easiest and most logical thing to do is to quit. That is exactly what the majority of people do. More than 500 of the most successful people in America had even known told the author of the great success came just one step beyond the point at which defeat had overtaken them. Failure is a trickster with a keen sense of irony, and cunning. It takes great delight in tripping one up when success is almost within their reach. A 50-cent lesson in persistence. Shortly after Debbie received his degree from University of Hard Knocks and decided to profit by his experience in the gold mining business, he had the good fortune to be present on an occasion that provided him no does not necessarily mean no. One afternoon, he was helping his uncle grind wheat in an old-fashioned mill. The uncle operated a large farm in which a number of small farmers lived. Quietly, the door was open, and a small child, the daughter of a tenant, walked in and took her place near the door. The uncle looked up, saw the child, and barked at her roughly. "What do you want?" Meekly, the child replies, "My mom says send her 50 cents. "I'll not do it," the uncle retorted. "Now you run on home." "Yes, sir," the child replied, but she did not move. The uncle went ahead with his work, so busily engaged he did not notice that the child had not left. When he looked up and saw her still standing there, he yelled at her, "I told you go on home. Now go, or take her switch to you." The little girl said, "Yes, sir," but she did not budge an inch. The uncle dropped a sack of grain he was about to pour into the mill hooper, picked up a barrel staff, and started towards the child with an expression on his face that indicated trouble. Debbie held his breath. He was certain he was about to witness a murder. He knew his uncle had a fierce temper. When the uncle reached the spot where the child was standing, she quickly stepped forward and one step, looking up to his eyes, and screamed at the top of the shrill voice, "My mommy gotta have a 30, 50 cents. My mommy gonna have that 50 cents. My mommy gotta have that 50 cents." The uncle stopped, looked at her for a minute, then slowly laid the barrel staff on the floor, put his hand in the pocket, and took half a dollar and gave it to her. The child took the money and slowly backed toward the door, and never taking her eyes off the man whom she had just conquered. After she had gone, and uncle and sat down on a box and looked out the window into space for more than 10 minutes. He was pondering with awe on the whipping he just taken. Mr. Debbie too was doing something, and that was the first time in all experience that he had seen the child of a sharecropper deliberately master an elder authority figure. How did she do it? What happened to his uncle that caused him to lose his fierceness and become docile as a lamb? What strange power did this child use to make him master over her superior? These and other similar questions flashed into David's mind, but he did not find the answer until years later when he told the story. Strangely, the story of an unusual experience was told to the author in the old mill on a very spot where the uncle took his whipping. As we stood there in the industry of an old mill, Mr. Debbie repeated the story of the unusual conquest and finished by asking, "What can you make of it? What strange power did the child use so completely whipped by an uncle?" The answer to this question will be found in the principle described in this book. The answer is full of complete. It contains details and instructions sufficient to enable people to understand and apply the same force that the little child accidentally stumbled upon. Keep your mind alert, and you'll observe exactly what strange power came to rescue of the child. You'll catch a glimpse of power in the next chapter. Somewhere in the book, you'll find an idea that quickens your receptive power and play at your command for your own benefit. This same irresistible power, the awareness of the power may come to you in the first chapter, or it may flash in your mind in some subsequent chapter. It may come in the form of singular or it may come in the nature of a plan or a purpose. Again, it may call you to go back into your past experience of failure or defeat, or bring to the surface some lesson by which you can regain all that you lost through defeat. After I had described to Mr. David the power of unwittingly used by the little guy, he quickly retraced his 30 years of experience as a life insurance salesman, frankly acknowledged that his success in that field was due into some small degree to the lesson he had learned from the child. Mr. David pointed out every time a prospect tried to bow me out without buying, I saw that child standing there in the old mill, her big eyes glaring in defiance. And I said to myself, I've got to make this sale. The better portion of sales I have made, we made after people had said no. He recalled to his mistake in having stopped only 3 feet from gold, but he said that experience was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to keep on keeping on, no matter how hard that's going may be. A lesson I need to learn before I could succeed in anything. The story of Mr. Davy and his uncle, the sharecropper child, and the gold mine will doubtlessly read by hundreds of people who make their living by selling in life insurance. To all of these, the author wishes to offer suggestions that Davy owes to these two experiences: his ability to sell than $1 million of life insurance every year. Life is strange and often imponderable. Both the success and failures have their roots in simple experiences. Mr. Davy's experiences were commonplace and simple enough, yet as they held the answer to his destiny in life, they were as important to him as life itself. He profited by these two dramatic experiences because he analyzed them and found the lesson by they thought. But what of the person who had neither the time nor the inclination to study failure in search of knowledge that may lead to success? Where and how are they to learn the art of conveying defeat into stepping stones to opportunity? In answer to this question, this book was written. The answer called for a description of 13 principles. However, remember, as you read that the answer, you may be seeking to the question which have caused you to ponder over the strenuous of life may be found in your own mind. Some ideas, plan, or purpose may spring in your own mind as you read. One sound idea is all you need to achieve success. The principles described in this book contain the best and most principled ways, that means of creating useful ideas. Before we go any further in our approach to the description of the principle, we believe you are entitled to receive the important suggestions. When riches begin to come, they come so quick in such a great abundance that one wonders where they have been hiding during all those years. This is an astonishing statement, and all the more so when we take into consideration the popular belief that riches come only to those who work hard and long. When you begin to think and grow it, you'll observe that riches begin with the state of mind, with definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work. And every other person ought to be interested in knowing how to acquire a state of mind to attract riches. I spent 25 years research analyzing more than 25,000 people because I too wanted to know how wealthy men became that way. Without that research, this book could have not been written. Here, take notice of a very significant truth. The business depression started in 1929 and continued on all-time record of destruction until sometime after President Roosevelt entered the office. Then the depression began to fade into nothingness. Just as an electrician in a theater rises the light so gradually that darkness is transmuted into light before you realize it. So, did the spell of fear in minds of the people gradually fade away and become faith? As soon as you master the principle of this philosophy and begin to follow the instructions for applying those principles, your financial status will begin to improve. Everything you touch will begin to transmute itself into an asset for your benefit. Impossible. Not at all. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average person's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules that will not work. He knows all the things that cannot be done. This book is written for those who seek the rules that have made others successful and willing to stake everything in those rules. A great many years ago, I purchased a fine dictionary that the first thing I did was to turn to word impossible and neatly clip it out of the book. That would not become an unwise thing for you to do. Success comes to those who become success conscious. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious. The object of this book is to help all who seek in it learn the art of changing their minds from failure conscious to success conscious. Another weakness found in altogether too many people is the habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own impressions and belief. Some who read this will believe that no one can think and grow rich. They cannot think in terms of riches because their thought habits have been steeped in poverty. What a misery, failure, and defeat. Millions of people look at the achievement of Henry Ford and envy him, his good fortune of luck or a genius or whatever it is. They credit a Ford fortune. Perhaps one person in every 100,000 knows the secret of Ford's success, and those who don't know are too modest and too reluctant to speak of this. Because of its simplicity, a single transaction will illustrate the secret perfectly. When Ford decided to produce his now famous V8 motor, he chose to build an engine with the entire 8 cylinders, thus cast in one block, and instructed his engineers to produce a design for the engine. The design was based on a paper, but the engineers believed it was simply impossible to cast 8 cylinders gas engine block in one piece. Ford said, produce it anyway. But they replied, it's impossible. Go ahead, Ford commanded, and they stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time is required. The engineers went ahead. There was no other option if they were to remain on Ford's staff. 6 months went by and nothing happened. Another 6 months passed and still nothing happened. The engineers tried every conceivable plan to carry out the orders, but the thing seemed out of the question, impossible. At the end of a year, Ford chatted with his engineers, and again they informed him they had found no way to carry out his orders. Go right ahead, said Ford. I'll wait. I want it. I'll have it. They went ahead, and then, as if by a stroke of magic, the secret was discovered. The Ford determination had won once more. This story may not be described with minute accuracy, but the sum and substance of it is correct. The didn't from it, you who the sum, and you who wish to think and grow rich. The secret of 4 millions if you can. You will not have to look very far. Henry Ford's success become he understands and applies the principles of success One of these is desire, knowing what or one wants. Remember this 4 story as you read and pick out the lines in which these secrets of stupendous achievement has been described. If you can do this, if you can lay down your finger on the particular group of principles that made Henry Ford rich, you can equal his achievement in most any calling for which you are suited. The Henry Ford of late 20th century was Bill Gates, just as Ford revolutionized the transportation industry by creating a car that almost anyone could afford, and Bill Gates transformed the computer industry by designing a software that enabled everybody, not just the specialized technocrats, to be able to use the computer, and later making the personal computer a visual necessity in every office, school, home. This resulted in Bill Gates accruing billions of dollars and becoming the richest man in America. He first became entranced to computers and began programming them at the age of 13. In 1973, he entered Harvard University, where he lived down the whole. Steve Ballmer, now Microsoft's chief executive, while at Harvard, Gates developed a version of programming language BASIC for the Microsoft computer. Gates was absorbed in his dream of building a software company. He left Harvard to devote his energies to fulfilling it. A few years earlier, he and his childhood Paul Allen had formed a company, Microsoft, as the vehicle for his endeavor, guided by a belief that the computer would be valuable tool on every desktop and in every home. They began developing a software for the personal computers. Gates' foresight and his vision for personal computing have become central to the success of Microsoft and software industry. Having achieved his major goal, Bill Gates continued to pursue new goals, both in business of creating ever-improving computer program and his philanthropic work, having founded with his wife Melinda the largest charitable foundation in the world. You are the master of your fate and captain of your soul. When the English poet W.C. Henley wrote the prophetic lines, "I am the master of your fate, I am the captain of my soul," he should have informed us that the reason we are in master of our fate and captain of our soul is because we have a power to control our thoughts. He should have told us that either in which little planet floats, in which we move and hang out, being in a form of energy moving at an inconceivable high rate of vibration, that the ether is filled with a form of universal power which adapts itself into the nature of the thoughts we hold in our minds and influences us with natural ways to transmute our thoughts into physical equivalent. If the poet told us of his great thought, he would have known it is that we are the master of our fate, the captain of our soul. He should have told us, with great emphasis, that this power makes no attempt of discriminate between destructive and constructive thought, that it will urge us to translate into physical reality thoughts of poverty, just as quickly as it will influence us to act upon thoughts of riches. He should have told us that our brains become magnetized with dominating thoughts we hold in our minds, by meaning which no one is familiar with. These magnets attract to us the forces, the people, the circumstances of the life, which harmonize with mature of our dominating thoughts. He should have told us that before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with intense desire for riches. That must become money conscious until the desire for money drives us to create a definite place for acquiring it. But being a poet and not a philosopher, Henley contented himself by a starting great truth of poetic form, leaving those who followed him to interpret the philosophical meaning of his lines. Little by little, the truth has unfolded itself until now appears a certain stating that the principles described in this book hold the secret of mastery of our economic field. Another man who exemplifies a master vision is Steven Spielberg, one of all-time great motion picture directors. He dreamed of being a movie director from childhood. He began making amateur films with a primitive camera when he was a child, and dream never succeeded. How Spielberg broke into Universal Studios is a legend in the movie industry. He took the Universal Studio tour and attraction and enabled visitors to get inside and look the movie business. Visited right around the studio, lot on a tram, and Steven sneaked off the tram and hid between two sound until the tour ended. When he left at the end of the day, he made a point of saying a few words to a gate guy day after day. He went back to the studio for 3 months. He walked past the guard, waved at him, and he waved back. He always wore a suit and carried a briefcase, letting the guard assume he was one of the students with the summer job in the studio. He made a point of speaking and the preventing directors, writers, editors. He even found a vacant office, he took it over and listed his name in the building direct. He made it his business to get to know Lead Simbeck. Then the head of production for the studio television showed him his college film project, which is so impressed Steinbeck that he put the young man under the contract with the studio. His first full-length, The Sangaland Express, received a critical acclaim and won a Best Screenplay Award at the 1974 Cannes Film Festival. Unfortunately, it did not do very well at the box office. His brief break came a year later. He discovered the book Jaws. The studio had already decided to produce Jaws and chosen a well-known director to film it. Spielberg, desperate, wanted to make this movie. Despite the financial failure of A Sangaland Express, he is self-confident and not diminished, and he persuaded the producers to dismiss the chosen director and give the film to him. It was not an easy assignment for beginning trouble Bassett, the production. It ran into technical budget problems. However, when Jaws was released in June 1975, it enjoyed full success in box office records, and the critics loved it. Within a month of its release, the film had taken in $60 million at the box office, one unheard of amount of the time. Over the next few years, Spielberg directed several movies, including The Power, the popular Indiana Jones serial, the award-winning The Color Purple, The Empire of the Sun, and E.T., and etc. He later directed Jurassic Park, which could also become at this time the most successful movie in history. The third Spielberg film to break the record. It also brought in over $1 billion in gross receipts, tours, and other merchandise. Spielberg continues to pursue his dream when he had two other Hollywood moguls created their own production company. They called it DreamWorks. We are now ready to examine the first of these principles. Maintain a spirit of open-mindedness. Remember as you read that they are invention of no single person. The principles were gathered from the life experience of more than 500 men who actually accumulated riches in a huge amount. Men who began in poverty were little education or influence. The principle worked for these men who can put their work for your own enduring benefits. You will find it easy, not hard to do. Before you read the next chapter, I want you to know that it conveys factual information that might easily change your entire financial destiny. as it has definitely brought changes of stupendous proportion to two people described. I want you to know also that the relationship between these two men and myself is such that I could have taken no liberties with the facts, even if I wished to do so. One of them has been my closest personal friend for almost 25 years. The other is my own son. The unusual success of these two men's success that they generously accredited to the principle described in the next chart more than justifies the personal reference as a means of emphasizing the far-flung power of this principle. Okay, thank you everyone. That's where chapter 1 is ending. See you on chapter 2.